Yeah. Mama Mo. I mean, this is it. This is how it goes. Got the row.
I never, ever
Ever.
have personal space.
No. You get no personal space.
And I'm not claustrophobic at all.
No.
It never bothers me.
So every night we have couch time, right? And couch time is talking, couch time is watching TV, couch time is hanging out, whatever. And so I always have my spot on the couch. It's on the far left. And then there's Mama.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Willie Mo. And Willie Mo likes to be petted. So his head is like in her lap.
All of our seats recline.
And all of our seats recline.
It's just one big
And then Rona likes to sit right at her feet. So Mama has this much room. Because Willie Mo and Daddy O and Rona. And then and if somehow the blanket gets pinched on her,
it's over.
she's like, I'm hot. Get off. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a fun week, easy week, kind of really laid back.
Well, today we are iced in St. Louis. So
Well, yeah, we are. We are iced in.
we're just kind of
Been
chilling out.
working on some projects.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So, we put our first video up last Monday, and that's what I think that's what we're going to try to do is do it every Monday. So
Yeah.
Monday afternoons or evenings is when we're going to post them.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some questions this time, and from last time that people just wanted us to talk about. We had a couple emails and messenger messages. So one thing that I saw a lot of was, how do we fight, and like fighting in a marriage, and so I'd like to talk about that if that's okay.
Sure. I was thinking about that in the shower, and I was trying to recall like our last bad fight, and what changed to really settle that. And it was really surprising to me because my history, my past, I was in an abusive marriage, and so when I came into our relationship, I brought with me that's never going to happen to me again, and I always kind of carried that in front of me. It's like I know that I value marriage and I value you, and I didn't really like consciously think about, I got one foot out the door just in case. But we had a fight. It was probably in 2014, I think. And
earlier than that.
And in that fight, I was just done. I was like, nope, you hurt my feelings. I'm done. I'm not going to stand for that. And I was ready to go. And as we, cooled down and began to talk about it, talk it through, one of the things that came up, he said, "You're not safe for me." And I was like, what are you talking about? How am I not safe for you?
We still lived in Bargraves. That was like 05 or 06.
Okay. It floored me. I was just like, how? What could I do to make you feel unsafe?
Well, describe unsafe. Like whenever I said unsafe, because I know you were thinking like, well, you're this big dude and I'm this little girl, and how am I unsafe to you? Yeah,
little tiny. In that picture the other day, I looked tiny.
Yeah, right.
You're a giant.
Yeah. So, but when I said you're not safe, it's that you're not safe for me to express myself to you.
Right.
You're not safe for me to mess up. You're not safe for me to voice what I want, right? Because if I do that, your automatic response was, I'm done. I'm leaving.
And that's what you said. You told me, you're like, look, I never know what it's going to be. It could be something big. It could be something small. You're out the door, and I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And that changed everything.
Well, sure, because, I think, I know we said we were going to talk about fighting, but it's all kind of together, right? So the idea of divorce can't even be an option.
Right. And that's
like you have to have a zero option. Like that's not the option. Like anything else is, but that's not the option. Like we're not getting divorced, right?
Right.
And it it was interesting because like a lot of people, I call this like the context of your marriage.
Okay.
Okay, and a lot of us, so context. We set context whether we realize it or not. A lot of people get married in the context of we're not getting divorced.
Right.
Well, if your mindset is we're not getting divorced, what do you think your actions line up to be?
Well, you're not thriving. You're just doing enough just to kind of keep it at bay.
That's right. I'm not doing anything that's going to get me divorced.
Right. But I'm not all in.
But I'm not doing anything great. I'm just doing enough to not get divorced.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And we set that early on, the day we got married. And it was kind of accidental, I'm sure, but it really changed everything, right? Because when we sat down in the truck after we said our vows, cleaning up all the snot and tears and stuff because we're big crybabies, right? But
you're a crybaby.
I am a crybaby. So when we sat down in the truck, you looked at me and you said, "All right, Mr. Morgan, where are we going to be at in 50 years?" And I was 31, and you were 30, and I said, "Well," I said, 50 years, man. That's 81 and 80. I didn't really think that I would live past 35 or 36, so I'd never really considered life at that age. And so I sat there and thought about it for a while. And this is an important conversation to have with your partner is where do we see ourselves going? Not just, well, yeah, sure, of course we want to stay together forever. I mean, that sounds really great, but you should put something out there that you're really looking for, that you're looking forward to, that you're driving to together. And that's where the unity comes in as well. We're on the same page. We're going over here. Right. If I want to retire in the country and you want to retire in the city, that's not going to work. Right? Because when it gets down to the time, it's like, well, I want to go here. And, I don't want to do that. I want to go here. And then you're in really big trouble, right? So I sat there and I thought about it. I said, I've got it. I said, I want to be sitting in our front porch swing, drinking sweet tea. And I first said grandkids, and I thought, well, if we're 80, it's probably great grandkids, at least grandkids, great grandkids, playing in the front yard. And she says, I like that. I want to do that too. So then, what that did is that created in me and in her this mindset. Who do I have to be in order for her to want to be with me in 50 years, to get on the front porch, watching our grandkids drinking sweet tea?
Right. And it was so foreign of an idea. At that point, did not have strong influences and people that I knew that had endured for the long haul. And so even if I didn't recognize it directly, I was in it for as long as it lasts. It's like, this is love, this is great. I'm all in. If it ends, it ends. Whatever, I didn't know because I had zero context.
You were all in until you weren't, right? Like that's really what it was. It's like, I'll be in as long as it works. But if it gets hard, I'm out. That was I'm not safe.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so when we finally worked through that conversation, it kind of turned into this, what's that story about burn the ships?
Oh yeah,
because it's like, if you just set yourself up to where there's no other choice, then you're going to be forced to work
it out,
whatever the situation is. And and it really did. It was a big turning point for us. And I would love to see that be a point of hope for people.
Yeah.
Now I know there's got to be, and as I was going through this in my head while I was in the shower, I was thinking, well, is everybody going to be able to relate to this? Is there every situation in a marriage that, you burn the ships, you're going to work through it? I don't know. There's some things though that you can't. There's
No, there.
how do you handle that?
Well, so I think that's really good, right? Because and I think that's what you were talking about before we got on camera. We were talking about a Jordan Peterson podcast, and what he was saying is you got to be all in, and it has to be that, you know, there has to be, the only way that you get on unity is when there's humility, right? So there has to be this mindset of you, my partner, before me.
Right.
Like, I want what's best for you before I want what's best for me. Because how I think about that is that if it's best for you, it's going to be best for us anyway.
Well, yeah, it ends up being reciprocal.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's like, then you're almost in a cycle of outdoing each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm putting your needs first. Well, you're putting my needs first. Well, I'm putting your needs first.
Well, that's a really great point, Sandra, because you're always going to be in a cycle.
Right.
You're always going to be in a situation where, so if it's a negative cycle, I'm mean to you, well then you're mean to me because I was mean to you,
Right.
and then, you know, you're going to up that, then I'll up that, and right. So that's a negative cycle, and a lot of marriages
Right.
participate in that cycle.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's always just sarcasm and angriness and bitterness and resentment and just digging at each other. There's no speaking life.
Right.
Or you can be in the cycle of building each other up and putting each other first. No, I want what's best for you. No, I want what's best for you. And then you're both tripping over each other, if you will, to encourage and be the best for one another.
Yeah.
Right? So listen, this is not a Pollyanna mindset of, look, God is, tiptoe through the tulips, and everything's going to be great. It's not that. What it really boils down to is it's hard work. It's really focusing on the compromise. See, like in a healthy marriage, we can't agree to disagree.
No.
We can't ever have that, right? So we have to come to an agreement that we're both going to operate from, right? And that's hard, man. Because there's some time. But you know how you have a good compromise?
Yeah.
You both think you got screwed a little bit.
Yeah. Really?
Oh yeah, because you have to come off your position.
Oh yeah.
I didn't get what I wanted. This is what I wanted over here. And well, you wanted this over here. Well, then we have to come. Now look, I want you to understand. Compromise in a marriage is never 50-50. Rarely, I shouldn't say never, that's probably not good. It's rarely ever 50-50. A lot of times in a marriage, compromise is 90-10, 80-20. And sometimes you're the 90 and sometimes you're the 10. You can't keep score though, and that's hard, right? Because you might be, look man, you might have a whole 6 months of 10s, but then you might have 9 months of 90s, you know, but I think that's how we break down each other's walls too. Because when I know that you want what's best for me, then I start believing that.
Well, yeah, because we have to be on the same team, and if in any sport and anything where you're on a team, you're not going against each other, I mean. Well,
you can't have a winner and a loser on a team.
Right.
Right.
On the same team, yeah.
Yeah, not on the same team, you can't, right? So we either win as a team or we lose as a team. I heard this guy say this, one of my favorite pastors, James McDonald. He says, if you're wrong in the way that you're right, you're still wrong. Right? And that's so true. So, it should never be about, well, I'm just right. But again, that's the humility.
Yeah, or my way. Even in, and I think, a lot of people get surprised in the hierarchy of a marriage, and especially for me, if I say, that I am a submissive wife. Oh yeah. My gosh, that sounds so horrible.
That word submissive is so, it's just so misunderstood, and it's very, it creates a very visceral reaction.
Well, yeah.
But if you read the Bible, like in Ephesians 5, it says, wives, submit to your husband. But if you read it a little bit farther, which is what you're supposed to do, you can't just pick one thing and say, hey, this is what we're doing, right? But if you read a little bit farther, it says, wives, our husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. So what that means is that as a husband, you should be a sacrificial leader
Right.
to your wife, to your partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? So up to and including your life,
Right.
right? So and you'll read, if you read throughout the Bible as well, it says that we should always be submitting to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So submission isn't a position of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I submit of my own free will. That's a position of power.
Well, I consider a submission position as, okay, so if you're the head, you're the head. We are the body. You know, in our marriage, we are a full body because we're united. If I allow you to be the head,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the neck.
That's right.
I'm the support. You cannot
Yeah.
be just a head
Yeah.
without me.
Yeah. It
And-
takes both of us to work it out.
I feel like that's a stronger position, you know.
I mean, for real,
It's
right?
like, what are you going to do without a way to operate your head?
That's right.
And that's me.
Yeah, and you know, as the neck, you get to direct the focus. Hey, this is important. Because another mindset that you have to have in marriage is, if it's important to your spouse, it has to be important to you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So, you know, really being able to put your ego to the side, and if you're wrong, admit you're wrong. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
a good place to start. But also be gracious when your partner admits their shortcomings or their faults
Right.
or their wrongness,
Mm.
right?
Really good.
Because if I come to you and say, hey, I'm sorry, I really screwed that up, and said, you know what, you're right, you did screw that up, and you're nothing but a screw up,
Right.
I will probably never apologize to you again,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
right? Because that doesn't feel good. It was already hard enough
Right.
to even speak the words.
Right.
But then to have you rub it in my face,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that doesn't work at all. So I won't do that again. So you got to really be aware of that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And as silly as this sounds, man, you learned this golden rule in kindergarten.
Do unto others as
No.
you.
Well, yeah, that
Right.
one, that's a good one. But what I was going to say is if you don't have anything nice to say,
Oh.
you don't say anything,
Right.
right? And listen, you might not be ready to accept their apology. Well, don't be ugly.
Yeah.
Right? As the guy I watch on that teaches golf videos, don't be nasty.
Don't be nasty.
Don't be nasty, right? Don't be nasty, right? So, you know, if your partner comes to you and you're not really ready to receive that and say, you know what, I get it, it's all good,
Mm-hmm.
right? You say, okay, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you may not be ready to talk about it yet. So, but let's get into fighting, right? I tell everybody all the time, there's nothing to fight about. In a marriage, there's nothing to fight about. And I really believe there's nothing to fight about, right? That doesn't mean we're not going to have disagreements,
Right.
but there's nothing to fight about. So you have to look at your disagreements in a very logical way and not an emotional way.
Mm-hmm.
When we start getting emotional, that's when it gets messy,
Oh, yeah.
right? So the first step that we should do, I know, Ron, I heard you. The first step that we should do is we should schedule a time to talk about it.
Like to allow things to just
Yeah,
cool down where you can think clearly.
that's
and,
right. And no matter what, right? So it's like, hey Sandra, I want to talk about how this is going to go, or how this has been going for me, you know, in the past year. When would be a good time for us to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, listen, your automatic response is going to be, let's talk about it right now.
Yeah. No. Not right now.
No matter what, you can't do it.
Too emotional right now. Can't do it.
Right. Because again, what's the goal of having a discussion, a disagreement with your partner?
To work through it. Like to.
But what does it mean to work through it? To become united again.
Right.
All conflict is a breakdown in unity.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
All conflict is hey, we're not on the same page about this.
Right.
So the goal is we got to get on the same page about this.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be the goal in everything that we do.
Right.
How do we get on the same page about this? Right?
Yeah.
So then, I want to talk about it right now. No. Let's both just take some time. Now, look, you can do it a couple hours later. That's fine. But I want you to be prepared.
Are you taking a notebook?
Yes.
You said.
Yes, you absolutely should. You really should do that.
I know that's helpful for me because I tend to forget things.
Well, here's what happens. When we get excited,
Mm-hmm.
now some people call it triggered. I don't really like that word. When we get excited, our amygdala gets fired up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that puts us into fight, flight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, we're not using the logical part of our brain. We're only using the emotional part of our brain.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Right? How many times, look, we've all had this, and this happens a lot. You're in an argument, it's hot, and you're going at it, back and forth, right? And they say something, you don't have a good response for it.
Right.
But then everything calms down, and what happens?
Well, then you think of everything you wanted to say.
I should have said. I forgot to say.
Right.
Or I forgot to even talk about something I wanted to talk about.
Right.
Well, you can't because you can't think.
Right. Yeah, I'm so worked up, and
Right.
then I've lost my words. I've lost, the point that I want to make, and exactly to be able to identify
That's right.
what it was.
That's right. So, what you want to do is let's take a break, right? And then we schedule it. Maybe it's tomorrow at 4, maybe it's tonight at 8, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we sit down, and I have found it helpful. We haven't needed this for a long, long time, but like a talking stick, a talking ball, whoever has the ball gets to talk, so we're not going to talk over each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, and here's my point. Now listen, we got to stay on point though. Only one point. We can't. And then what you did, and we can't go down that road.
Right.
Now that will happen. That's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happens, you have to acknowledge that. You know what? That's a good point that you bring up. Let me write that down, and let's schedule that conversation too, because that needs to be talked about. Because if they're bringing it up, what does that mean? It's unresolved.
Right.
It's out here hanging on us heavy, unresolved.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want anything unresolved in a marriage because that creates separation and not unity.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So we're going to have this conversation. We're going to work through it. We're going to be respectful to one another. We're not going to name call. Here's another thing that's really important about any kind of conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement.
We have to have no-go zones. Things we don't ever say to each other. Things we don't ever bring
you
up.
act like your mom, or
Yeah.
But-
No offense to your mom,
right.
but you don't want to be her, do you?
No, I'm my person. I know
That's
who
right.
I am.
That's
so
right.
yeah.
Right? And so, or I like this one too, because here's the thing: in a marriage, you should be sharing confidential information.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You should be being vulnerable with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of times what we end up doing is we take that piece of information that you were vulnerable with,
Mm-hmm.
and we use it
Right.
as a tool to get what we want.
Right.
That has to be part of that. We don't go down that road. We don't use that stuff
Right.
against each other. So, for us, we don't cuss,
Mm-hmm.
we don't name call, and we don't raise our voices. And obviously we have the rules of engagement as well, right? But that's the big three. We don't use that stuff against each other, right? If you can't manage that, then you got to take a break. Now, when you take a break, though, it's not just, I'm done with this conversation, because that's called stonewalling, because there's no agreement to come back to it,
Right.
right? So what you need to do is like, hey, I can feel myself getting elevated,
Mm-hmm.
and I respect this relationship too much. I don't want to do anything or say anything that would damage it.
Mm-hmm.
I need a timeout.
Right.
Now, in a timeout, there's a contract that we're going to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Typically 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And when you take that time out, you remove yourself, and maybe you go for a walk or a drive or go listen to some music or take a hot shower, whatever it is that brings you back down, but then you have to come back to it.
Right. I
Right?
know all of that stuff was so hard for me, and I'm so thankful for the way that, especially from the beginning of our marriage, and what I came into it with.
Mm.
I hadn't been allowed to express disagreement or anything like that, and even for him to say the words to me, look, you're safe to say whatever it is that you need to say. I don't care if you disagree with me.
That was a little bit of a mistake. Because she went from not fighting back to whoosh, throwing things at me like it was like, hey.
I didn't throw it at you. I threw
Well,
it at the wall.
maybe you threw it at the wall, and I happened to be near the wall
I might have broke a door.
and broke a door. I mean, like, yeah, she did, right? So, but that's normal for people. We go from one extreme to the other. That's very normal. But you have to find that middle ground.
I didn't realize that it was a part of testing that trust. I know now, and I've said it to people. It's like, man, I gave you every reason or opportunity to lash back at me, and you didn't.
Well, that was hard. That was hard.
But it really, really helped me grow, and to have my own value, for it to not just be words, but for it to be something that's real and that I can trust. And you gave me that space, and it was hard to even imagine that was possible. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think about how many people are in that kind of position where they're like, we're so hurt, we're so broken, you're saying these things and that there's hope and possibility, but how? Where do we start? How? Like, is going to counseling the only way that you can do that?
I mean, look, you can talk to your pastor, you can go to counseling, you can, your parents maybe not. You should have, a tight-knit group of people too that will mentor you. I think every couple needs a mentor couple.
It just made me think you've got to be very careful that the people that you do choose to turn to are going to be the people that are going to be on the side of encouraging and not bailing.
Well, yeah, because I talk about that. So one thing I like to say about that is you should be aware of who you turn to when things aren't going well in your marriage. How they respond. Do you turn to the people who point you back to your spouse? Or do you turn to the people who commiserate with you? Yeah, he's a dog. You don't need that. You deserve better.
Right, because how do you get through that? Like, so let's say you work through your stuff and you're better.
And you just had to stay. That's right.
But if you've talked to your friend or your mom or your sister or whoever, and you've said all these awful things about your spouse, that's gonna stick. That's gonna linger. And then what? You're at Thanksgiving, and they're all like,
yeah. They'll never look at your partner the same way again.
Right.
So you got to be very, very careful with who you talk bad about your partner to, because they're not in the same position as you. They're going to be protective of you, and then all they know is that you did this to them, or that your partner did this to you, and then you're like, well, I forgave him.
Yeah.
They don't have the relationship to forgive him.
How could you?
That's right. That's right. So that's a really good point. So if you want, so I have a document on rules of disagreements.
Okay.
And I have a document for timeout. So if you want that, you can just drop a comment or message us, probably message us through Messenger, and I'll email it to you. I mean, I don't have a problem with that at all, right? And that's just good reminders, because we didn't go over all of them,
right.
But I think that's a good mindset of, we have to schedule. We don't have spontaneous fights. We can't do that, because this relationship is too important to not do it right.
Yeah.
I don't want to do damage.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make this work in the best possible way.
Right. Sometimes that looks like a timeout. Like just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm too emotional. I'm too worked up. I need to step back. I need some time.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, here's what's important, because here's I've seen this a lot, right? Where people, when their partner says, I need a break, they just keep coming at them.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason they come at them is because if they get the break,
Mm-hmm.
they don't ever return to the
It doesn't go
conversation. It
back.
doesn't get
Yeah.
resolved.
Yeah.
So they don't trust it.
Yeah, you're left
So-
feeling like I need to be heard.
I got to be heard. So by God, I got your ear. Because if you're telling me leave me alone, at least I know you're listening to me. I mean, like, for real,
Mhm.
right? So that's hard. That's hard. So this is that trust part that you just got. It becomes this. We got to build up to that, and it's really important to do. You know.
But when you do, man, is it worth it?
Oh my gosh, it's so worth it. It's really. You know, I tell people all the time, because I feel like a weirdo sometimes. It's like, I didn't even know this level of happiness was available in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just had no, in any relationship, let alone, marriage, and that was one, I mean, this is one of the main reasons. I really like working with trauma too, but this is one of the main reasons I've wanted to become a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because man, oh man, if I can figure this out and have a healthy relationship, then I think anybody can.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and dude, this is the most important relationship in your life.
Yeah,
It
'cause
should,
this is
it
gonna
should
go
be a
on
good,
after the kids leave, after
yeah,
all the things. It's like, man, you don't want to get
Yeah.
down the road and be stuck with like, who are you?
that's right.
And now I'm
That happens all the time, right? The kids
Yeah.
graduate high school and they go off, and it's like,
empty.
we don't even know each other because we've been, running our own program for so long,
Right.
right?
Yeah. No, we reached the cheesy level. We're just.
Oh, we're ridiculous. It's good
Silly.
though.
Yeah.
All right, you got any last words?
I think I got everything out.
Yeah, I think that was pretty good, man. So, like I said, drop us a comment down there if you want. If you like this, you got something you want to talk about, drop us a comment down there. If you want those documents, the rules of disagreements and the timeout, just shoot us a message with your email, and I'll be happy to send that over to you. And that's it, man.
Okay.
Here's to hoping that you have a great marriage.
Yes.